Hello and welcome to today's videos of Vanguard Life. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Let's move straight to the front pages of the dailies. I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with Tinubu hits ground running, removes fuel subsidy, promises to review Naira redesign policy, unify exchange rates, urges states to generate own electricity, says Nigerians we endured hardship. Notes mandates given him not misplaced. You can see that story on page 5. They have two photo story here. One showing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu shortly after taking his oath of office in Abuja, and the other is also showing the Vice President Kashim Shettima after swearing in yesterday in Abuja. On pages 14 and 15, 28 governors take over, promise rapid development of states. NLC fought subsidy remover as Man, Nasima, others hail unified efforts. And on sports, Napoli to fend off interest in £130 million Osimhen from Manchester United and Chelsea. Stories above, petrol price jumps to 350 naira per litre as queues return. Broadcast mogul Raymond Dokpesi dies at 71. May his soul rest in peace. May 29, it's time to re-examine our assumptions that's coming from OB. Inauguration, Biden congratulates Tinubu, six sustained United States-Nigeria relationship. We foresaw banditry could mutate into terrible menace, says Erifai. You can see that on page 8. And lastly, on Vanguard newspaper, new Kano governor vows to probe 241.5 billion naira debt. That can be seen on page 35 of Vanguard newspaper. Let's move to the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with Nigeria would break up, says Tinubu. Meet United States, United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia envoys. President says Nigeria will continue to exist, promises not to be a dictator. Ipman opposes fuel subsidy remover, queues resurface in Abuja, Lagos, and others. Biden writes President Tinubu says Nigeria's success is world success. Stories below, mother, daughters found dead in Lagos shop, please kill man. And Sowolu Abiodun sworn in for second term. Zamfara governor lament empty treasury. You can see the stories on pages 5, 6, 42, and 43. Stories above, Tinubu Obaseki, others mourn as Dr. C dies at 71. Lastly, on the Punch newspaper, by cabinet members feared being jailed by Buhari. That can be seen on page 21 of the Punch newspaper, and it's coming from Jonathan. Let's move away from that and go to The Nation. The Nation is leading with My Plans by Tinubu, experts back president on subsidy and exchange rate policies. You can see that on page 63. And there's a statement here accompanied with President Tinubu's picture. It says, whether from the winding creeks of the Niger Delta, the vastness of the northern savannah, the boardrooms of Lagos, the bustling city of Abuja, or the busy market of Onitsha, you are all my people. As your president, I shall serve with prejudice towards none, but compassion and amity towards all. You can see that in the Nation newspaper, and the different highlights there for what from during his inauguration address. Stories above, torrents of tributes for Mobi Diabogo Dapesi. Lastly, on the Nation newspaper, governors unfold agenda in 28 states. Now let's move to the Guardian. The Guardian is leading with scarcity trails subsidy remover as Tinubu begins house cleaning. That can be seen on page 6. Stories below, Dr. C have lost a brother, friend, says Atiku. That can be seen on page 3. Erifai accuses Buhari of mishandling terrorism as Sani vows to secure Kaduna. You can see that on page 4. Controversy over Kali Air assets. 900 million naira debt to Hero contractors. That can be seen on page 21. And lastly, on the Guardian newspaper, no opposition to blame as Tinubu Mount Saddle gets Biden support. That can be seen on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break as our guests will be analyzing the stories from the studio. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Today the News on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Joining me to analyze the front pages of the dailies this morning is Mr. Dayo Akintobi. He's the publisher of Ilupeji Today, Lekki Today, and Ikeja GRA Today. Good morning, Mr. Dayo.
Good morning, Damilola. Good morning to all of you.
And welcome to the Batified era.
Yes, we have a new president.
We have a new
Congratulations to Nigeria. Congratulations to us all.
Yes, and the president made a lot of he made a lot of points during his first national address yesterday. And one of the things he said, let's just take it step by step. Let's start with unified effects. Some people have been talking about it, some are for it, some are against it. But what do you think about the policies? What does it mean? What does it mean?
Well, that difference between the divergence between the official rate at central bank and the black market rate, which is what we call the parallel market, it has caused a lot of chaos. It's caused a lot of financial difficulty, and it has also been an avenue for major profit making for a very select few. If you are close to the powers that be at CBN and you can get an allocation at official rate and you turn around and sell it to the bureau de change, you can become a billionaire overnight. Whereas people who legitimately want to pay school fees or who want to travel and pay medical expenses, they can't get allocation at the official rate and they end up going to buy at the black market rate. So that has created opportunity for what is called arbitrage, which few people can capitalize upon, but it hurts the average Nigerian. It makes goods expensive because business people can't get official rates, so they end up buying black markets to use to pay for their imports. That cost is passed on to the consumer. So what President Tinubu is saying now is we have to unify the rates. Let's not have two different rates because, like I say, it creates opportunity for profit taking from a few people who are opportuned or advantaged to be close to the people at the CBN. So if we unify these rates and have only one, and everybody has access to that same pool of capital at the same price, it should make things stabilize a bit in terms of imports and in terms of the value of the naira. So I think it's a good thing.
All right, let's talk about the fuel subsidy and the fact that his statement yesterday are very still affecting the ordinary Nigerians. What do you think about him saying that subsidy is gone?
Well, it goes to show the power of the words of a president. If a president just sneezes or coughs, it can have an unintended effect in society. He just said one phrase, subsidy is gone. And look at the instant reaction. Within an hour of that statement, they were accusing Abuja already. And basically, the prices have gone up. The marketers have started hoarding the fuel. Scarcity is back again. Now, I understand where he was coming from because he didn't really do it. The previous administration did it with the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, which does not give any allowance for subsidy. And so in the current budget we are operating, subsidy has not been captured at all. They didn't make any allowance for subsidy payments in the current budget. Well, some experts have said, yeah, but they can pass a supplementary budget. That's no big deal. That's how come Buhari's government was able to push it by till June this year, was because they passed a supplementary budget to make allowance for some extra months of the subsidy. But the point is this, his first day in his first speech, I don't think he realized the gravity of what that simple statement could cause. I think that he should have been a bit more measured and said, okay, yes, we all agree subsidy must go. We'll look at it once we are in office and begin to see ways to do it in a way that will be least inconvenient for Nigerians. I mean, there's this issue of the refineries. Many experts in the petroleum industry have said, or in the oil and gas industry have said, forget about Dangote refinery, that's a private enterprise. Now, until Nigeria's refineries are up and running, and until additional cushioning effects are put into place, subsidy should not be removed. If it is removed, it will cause hardship. So I think that's the approach you should have taken to calm nerves, because people are already on edge and they are worried and we are in economic downturn and there's no money and all this. The last thing anybody wants to hear is that subsidy will be removed and immediately at the pump you will see a difference in price, which we are already seeing this morning. So I don't think he should have led with that. I think what he should have done was allay people's concerns, say, yes, we're going to do this, but we'll do it in a way that's least harmful to you. So as soon as we get into office, we'll look at different measures we can take and we will carry you along. Not just to just drop a phrase and say, it's gone, deal with the fallout, it's your problem, we can't accommodate it any longer. He did try to explain. He said, country cannot afford to pay for it anymore. So many trillion per quarter or per month or whatever. They can't afford it. They don't have the revenue. He said the savings from it will put it into infrastructure, will put it into education, will put it. So he had good points, but I think presidential statements are weighty and they can have a direct and pressing impact on the well-being of everyday Nigerians. We are seeing it at the pump today already. Half of my staff haven't come to work this morning. They can't get to work. There's no transportation. There's no fuel being sold. Even the few buses that are out there, the prices have escalated. So it's having an impact.
All right, but should we blame the president's statement for the pump price increase? I mean, I spoke to the tricycle rider yesterday night, and he was making me understand that he was at a filling station. The person before him bought fuel for 200 naira per liter. Immediately got to his turn, they sold it to him 300 naira per liter.
Well, without a doubt, there's profit taking. Remember, we run a capitalist society. Yeah? Capitalism is all about maximization of profit. If you don't like it, let's go to socialism, one man, one plot, and price control of everything. But as long as we're in a capitalist society where we say everybody is free to charge what they want, when we had subsidy, government was regulating the price. But when they said they deregulate, they leave it for market to dictate the price. So you cannot blame a business person for seeing an opportunity and maximizing the profit. The only issue there, right, is that the current supplies of fuel, when I have a problem with what's happening now, the current supplies of fuel, government has paid subsidy on it already. The ones that is in their depots and in their pumps, subsidy has been paid on it already. So it's not morally correct for them to hike the price on something that they bought cheap. So I have an issue with that. And I think that because government pays subsidy on it, government has a right to call them to order. So I think DPR, NNPC, and all those other government agencies that are in the downstream section of the oil and gas industry, they need to go and start sanctioning any petrol stations that are either hoarding or overpricing, because the fuel they still have now is subject to that government price. Remember, government put a ceiling of 187 or something like that. When they run out of those supplies and they now start buying non-subsidized fuel, right? They can charge whatever they want. Because remember, if you overcharge, people will go to the next person who is undercharged. That's the beauty of capitalism. If you ask for too much, people will vote with their wallet and go to the next person who's pricing reasonably, and you will go out of business. So there are a check and balance on each other. That's what competition does. If you overprice, you lose out. If you lose out, you go out of business. So you are watching what your next door neighbor is doing. If his price is at 200, you price your own at 199.97. That 3 kobo difference will make people come to you and leave him. So you price 199.97. He'll turn around and see you and see all the cars going to you. He will now price 199.95. And the consumer is the one always benefiting because competition is keeping them in check. So ordinarily, I don't blame a business person for maximizing his gain. Business people are not philanthropists. They are not in it for charity. There's no sentiment involved. It's purely a profit-driven business. They see an opportunity to make profit. They capitalize on it. That's business. But like I said, in this particular instance, I blame the marketers because it's subsidized fuel. It's fuel has been paid for by government and subsidized by government that they are now hoarding and they are now selling for double the price. That's not right.
All right, when he was talking yesterday, he said Nigerians have endured hardship. And people are now wondering, when we have other presidential candidates or presidents, entering and all that, they have oppositions to blame. Right now, there's no opposition to blame. So, what do you have to say about that statement?
Well, you look at it and you think that, him being the same member of the same party that just left power, you would think that if he has any solutions that are different from what the Buhari government did, why did he not tender them to the Buhari government so that they could have made better progress and performance? So you ask yourself, does he really have anything different? Because they're all from the same party. So if it was his party under a different regime that foisted all this hardship on us, why should we expect any different from him? Well, one thing is this: you can advise. Advice doesn't have to be taken. It's only worth the words that it is spoken with. So it's quite possible that he has some ideas that he put before President Buhari that President Buhari didn't necessarily accept. So the thing that struck me about his message was this idea of hope renewed. And of course, his track record and antecedents as an astute administrator in the past, I think we should give him a chance. I think he hit the right notes. Apart from the subsidy statement, I think his his inaugural speech, he hit the right notes. He talked about unifying the country. He recognized the fact that we've been going through a hard time, and he said he's coming, bringing hope. And he outlined some things he would do in terms of the economy. He talked about commodity boards. He talked about unifying the foreign exchange rate. He talked about increasing the GDP to 6%, growth, which is highly ambitious. So he's hitting the right notes in reassuring us that he has concrete plans to better our lives. I think we should give him a chance. I think let's look after 100 days. He's appointed his cabinet. I think by the time he starts telling us who the people he's going to work with are, it'll give us an indication of what to expect from him down the road.
But in the history of Nigeria and both the presidency, the governors, and all that, we've always had this, the national during their national address with these different promises, like someone said, like in quotes, wish list. There's always those things in their wish list that are not fulfilled. So, what is going to make him different?
It's not him that's different. It's us that should hold him to account for the promises he has made. He made promises on the campaign trail. Based on those promises, we elected him. Now that he's come into office, he's made another set of promises. So it's up to us as the media to be his watchdogs. It's up to the electorates to continue to hold him to his promises and keep him accountable to the things he said he would do. And once he's not doing them, we need to begin making noise. Also, remember, this is the beauty of democracy. You make promises, you don't keep them. 4 years' time, you get a report card, right? But we are still too driven by sentiments and emotions and loyalties that are not founded in practicality. So what I'm essentially saying is if he fails to keep his promises, maximum 4 years' time, he will get a report card. But how much do you want to bet that even if in 4 years' time he doesn't keep his promises, the people who voted for him and supported him will still continue to vote for him and support him? I think our politics needs to get to a point where we are open-eyed and we rate people based on the actualization of the promises they made. Those who made them, we reward them with another term. Those who didn't keep those promises, we push them out after 4 years. That's the beauty of democracy. You can't fool all the people all the time. You make promises, you don't keep them. After a certain period of time, you get to answer for your inactivity.
All right, we have economic issue, we have corruption issues, and we have all the unemployment, many issues on ground. So, what do you think you should focus on right now that is in the office?
Well, I think the first thing should be insecurity. Because if you are insecure, you can't go to work, you can't go to farm, you can't sleep at night, you can't walk on the streets freely, you're getting kidnapped for ransom, all these things. If you're not secure, you can't really even have a life, let alone generate revenue. You got farmers, for example, in many parts of the north today, farmers can't go to farm because of insecurity. So ask those farmers about economy. They say, what are you talking about? What is the meaning of economy? The economy has no meaning to them. They need to be able to be secure for an economy to be meaningful. So I would say he needs to look at the insecurity issue. Of course, he needs to look at the economy as well, and he has promised to do. I think in terms of corruption, I think that's a long-term fight. I don't think you can come in and crack a whip and overnight corruption disappears. I remember when President Buhari came in, within the first month of his coming in, people say, oh, his body language. They remember from his first coming in 1984. And they say, oh, his body language, he's going to lock up people, he's going to execute those who steal from the public coffers, and people shaped up quickly. I remember a friend and I were arguing. He said, power has never gone from my house for 1 day since President Buhari came in office. NEPA people, they have straightened up because they are afraid of him. He's a anti-corruption crusader. He will deal with everybody. And I told him, I said, has NEPA added any infrastructure? Have they increased power generation? Have they increased transmission? Have they put more power lines? Have they distributed more? So where is this uninterrupted power supply coming from? Let's look at the foundations. Even if his body language is scaring people, as long as there's still a deficiency in the infrastructure, we're going to go back to powerlessness now after the fear of Buhari subsides after a month or two. Before I finished talking, power was gone and power was back to where it was before. So corruption is not something that you crack a whip at and it disappears. There has to be a systemic expunging and a long-term reorientation of values. And see, corruption is from the bottom all the way to the top. In fact, I venture to say that we at the bottom are even more corrupt than the people at the top. So even if you try and eliminate it in the civil service, eliminate it in the polity, it will continue to thrive at the bottom. So it's a long-term solution for corruption.
Okay, talking about electricity, it said that the states now can generate their own electricity.
Yes.
So how is this beneficial to ordinary Nigeria?
Well, of course, it should that should improve power availability, because now states can go into joint ventures with private firms and create their own power plants. I remember even this very Tinubu himself, when he first became governor of Lagos, he tried to do an IPP, an independent power plant, with a company called Enron from America, and they wanted to generate so many megawatts that could power the whole of Lagos. But the conflict between the federal and the state at that time led President Obasanjo to block it, and it didn't come to pass, even though they brought a lot of equipment in and things like that. But once states are able to generate their own power, the problem is it's very capital intensive, and it requires a deep knowledge. You have to have expertise in that field. That's why the states will do it as PPP, public-private partnerships with investors who know their onions about the power sector and who have the deep pockets to be able to fund it, right? But once states can be able to begin to generate their own power, first of all, it will take the pressure off the national grid. Then secondly, it will create surplus energy, because now we are not all dependent on power coming from one place. So it's a good thing, and I commend President Buhari for doing that, because he was the one who signed the constitutional amendment that moved power generation from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, which has now empowered states to do it. So the new president said it in his speech yesterday that he will collaborate with the states to help them set up their own power plants. So maybe this is the beginning of the end of blackouts and all these power problems we've been having.
And the sound of generators and the smells of the
pollution.
Yes. I would like you to quickly comment on this one. And that was what the former president said, immediate past president Buhari, where he said, the cows are easier to manage than Nigerians. Well, what do you think about that statement?
Well, I think what he meant is that Nigerians are very difficult to please. Well, human beings in general, you can't satisfy everybody. Look at this subsidy issue. People are evenly divided now about the comment he made yesterday. Some say he shouldn't even have talked about subsidy at all. The other half are saying he over talked about it. So how do you satisfy a diverse and intelligent and enlightened group like us? Because there will always be differences of opinion. I think what President Buhari was saying was, no matter how middle of the road his position was, he had enough detractors from everything he tried to do. No matter, if you are prone to excess positions, of course you have detractors. But President Buhari's experience showed that even if you are middle of the road and you are compromising every step of the way, you will still have vociferous opposition. You can't satisfy Nigerians. We are a very critical set of people. When I say critical, I mean we criticize a lot. And that was his experience, was that no matter how hard he tried, it was never good enough in the eyes of Nigerians. Well, should he have drawn a parallel or used cows as a metaphor? I think it's a harmless statement. I don't think he meant anything by it. I think what he meant simply was that those ones is where you put them that they will stay. They don't complain. They are very easy to manage. But Nigerians, we as a people, we don't settle for less. And if you're not giving us what we consider to be optimum performance, optimum achievement, optimum results, we will always complain. So that's what he meant.
All right. Lastly, I would like you to quickly comment on this one. It's a very sad one, and that the fact that the founder of AIT, that communications, passed away yesterday.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about?
Yes, that was a very sad one, because at 71 he's still relatively young. In this day and age, 71 is not very old, and also because he's been a giant in Nigerian media, in Nigerian politics. He's a well-known and highly regarded public figure. He has made a big impact on our society in many ways. For example, I was reading somewhere yesterday that Ray Power Ray Power FM, his radio station, was the first radio station to go 24 hours in Nigeria back in the either late 80s or early 90s. In those days, radio stations and TV stations, they would close transmission at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So he was the first one he was a trailblazer. He was the first one to take the bold step of trying to do 24-hour radio. And many naysayers didn't believe he would succeed. Who is going to be listening to radio at night? Who will advertise on radio at night? Everybody's sleeping at night. But he pushed aside the naysayers and forged ahead, and he set a trend. He not only succeeded at it, it became the standard, and everybody else rushed to follow him. And of course, from radio, he now moved into television. The only issue that I wonder is, in looking at his life, I wonder, should media moguls, should they be political in nature? Because I'm looking at the intersection of his media conglomerate with the politics he practiced. And I'm trying to wonder if it didn't have an effect. Because I believe AIT, for example, was one of the early private stations. I believe AIT could have been bigger and more influential than it is. I believe AIT could have been as big as Channels, as big as Arise, if it had been pursued as an independent venture. But it's possible that his involvement in politics may have affected AIT's fortunes. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But in looking at his history, he made his mark. It's a shame he's gone so early. And it's in rather tragic circumstances, because they say he wasn't ill. He just had a slight accident that led to his demise. So our thoughts and prayers are with his family. We pray that his soul rests in peace. And he left a very good, strong legacy that especially media practitioners like us have to look up to and try to emulate. In politics also, I mean, Atiku Abubakar, presidential candidate of the PDP, said the state left a condolence message yesterday to where he said he was not only his friend, but he was an active supporter, an active PDP member, and he made his presence felt in the party. So in both industries that he straddled, he bestrode them like a colossus and made his impact felt. So he will not be forgotten. May his soul rest in perfect peace.
Amen. All right, let's end this on a lighter note with Mr. and Mrs. And the first person speaking today is Mrs. Mrs. says, come on, honest, swimming is one of the best exercise for the body because you mistakenly gulped some water while swimming is not a big deal. And Mr. replied, not a big deal. Do you know that some people have this habit of urinating while in the pool?
So he has swallowed urine-infested water. Oh, goodness. Well, when you think about it, most swimming pools have chlorine anyway. So you don't want to be swallowing swimming pool water because you're swallowing chemical. So when you now have chlorine urine,
Oh my God.
boy, you've really swallowed a concoction.
Really concoction. Thank you, Mr. Dyer, for joining us today.
My pleasure always.
Yes, and he just reviewed and analyzed some of the stories on the front pages with us this morning. Now, to get more of our top stories, you can follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Have a lovely